Welcome to the Boston Art Podcast,
Boston's premier art podcast,
where we talk art, culture, and philosophy.
My name is Theodore Earthworms.
And I am Brian Huntress.
Welcome to the show.
All right, do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jaina Cipriano. I'm a Boston-based experiential designer. I work mostly in spaces, building immersive spaces, doing set design for my career and for the public, but I also do a lot of film work, writing and directing, and I am a photographer. Photography is where it all started, but now I'm only a photographer for myself and not for hire, just as a way for me to explore what I'm doing and ways to capture other things that I've created.
That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about, when you say experiential designer, does that relate to the immersive spaces you were talking about?
Yeah, so I'm very interested in designing immersive spaces, designing experiences. So, having experiences. So going to like places like Meow Wolf or Bodeborg or escape rooms and things like that. So I'm currently trying to figure out a way to kind of mix together a few of these things and hopefully open a pop-up in Boston this year.
Oh, cool.
And I also saw that it looks like you recorded a music video with Carissa Johnson.
I did, yes.
That is so cool. I have played a few shows with her in the past, and I've chatted with her before. How was it working with? I know she puts on like a really amazing live show. What was it like working with her on a video and, you know, with this pre-recorded song and building that set? Because I know that set was very, very extravagant for that video.
Yeah, so everyone knows Carissa. It's so funny. I love her. But yeah, no, she's kind of the ideal client, I think. I mean, she has so much trust and respect for the process, and she's so excited about like where things are going to go and how things will develop, which is kind of like exactly the type of person I love working with. So that was, I think, everyone's big project after, I mean, COVID is still happening, but after, it was the first time I think me and my team had gotten back together to really do something in over a year. So it was, aside from like how the actual shoot and process went, it was just such a joy for all of us to be working together and to be able to create something that was so like tactile and colorful and silly. I think it was something we all needed at the time.
Yeah, in terms of tactile art too, I noticed that you have a really direct approach to texture in your photography, as opposed to like something, you know, more like illusion based. You know, you have like putting like sprinkles or you know, it looks like fake blood or like smoke. Like, could you tell us about like what inspires you or in terms of your approach to texture in your photography?
Yeah, I mean, everything for me comes back to experience and immersive spaces, even though I feel like immersive is a word that's overused, but I think it's the one that's in the lexicon right now. But for me, if I don't have something to like ground myself in a photograph or in like a performance, it can be difficult to like pin down what it is I'm trying to achieve. And I feel like texture and mess and touch and sensation is such an easy, it almost feels like cheating to me. Like it's such an easy way to get into like a character or a mind space, or kind of like transition from being like normal everyday Jaina to like whatever weird, fantastical, emotional character I'm trying to become and capture. Like once you're in the mess, for me at least, something in my body just kind of like switches, and I'm able to access like different thought patterns and emotions and process those.
Also, changing gears a little bit, could you tell us about how you got started with photography? Did you grow up around here?
I did. I'm a Boston girl through and through. I mean, there's no memory in my mind of when I was like not interested in holding a camera.
Yeah.
Like there's videos of me. There's a home video of me as a child, and my dad is like filming me and my brother running around at like the age of 5 or 6, and I go up to him and like ask for the camera and like turn it around on him and my mom.
That's cute.
So
Classic young artist.
Yeah, so it's just something I always did. But and then I think when I was 17, I remember like sneaking out of my parents' house to go to like a party with my, it's like, like 7 feet of snow outside with like my camera like around my neck, and I just had this moment where I was like, oh, this is like a thing that people do. It had been so second nature to me forever. I was like, oh, but this is actually something I could like pursue or like have a career with or like go to college for. And then I did.
That's a really interesting transition too, because it sounds like you were doing this because you loved it before you even knew that it could be like, something like a brand or a career or something. At what time did that transition happen, and was there a catalyst that led you to that realization?
Yeah, when I went to school, I was very much in the mindset of like, I'm going to be a documentary photographer, I'm going to be a photojournalist, something like that. And so I was really dedicated to capturing like what was going on around me, like really inspired by Nan Golden and her work. And then when I was like in my early 20s, they're just like nothing interesting was going on around me. And I feel like my life felt kind of like weirdly out of control as it does in your early 20s. And so I started creating parties for the purpose of taking photos at them.
Oh, cool.
And I called them immersion. And they very quickly like spiraled out of control from just like a little backyard party to these like full-fledged like themed events where I had like 20-30 people in my like tiny Cambridge apartment, and we would like I had like a balloon themed one and filled like the entire apartment with balloons up to like our chest and like set lights up everywhere. There was like a birthday themed one, and so it was kind of like in that process of building space and connecting with people and seeing that I was like, oh, this is really what I want to do, because I never really gained any traction in like documentary or photojournalism as a career. But when I started working like one-on-one with models and creating this like more performative work, I was like, oh, this is kind of like, this is fine art, like these are clients, like this is something that I could really like push into like a brand image.
And it comes through so much in your work. We're looking at some of the photography on your website right now, and it's that kind of theatrical element is so present in all of it. It's crazy to hear that it started as something that was not in this direction, because they're such powerful images and they're all so narrative. Just really nice to see.
How does your set design work? Like, is that like what is what's your process like in building some of these settings?
Like the photo sets, like for myself.
Yeah, like right now we're looking at this series. I believe it is called blah blah blah. The Garden from 2017 and 18.
Yeah, the Garden especially was like mostly trash. So I was a lot younger, and it was mostly like things I could find on the side of the road. I had a general idea of what I wanted. There was a lot of greenery, and the idea of like very inspired by the Disney cartoon Alice in Wonderland, of that idea of like in the foreground things are very bright and colorful, and it all kind of like fades to darkness, so you don't really know how large of a space you're in. Like, does it go on forever? Does it not? And they were all shot in my parents' basement, which like they're like 6 or 7 foot tall ceilings, like not a photo studio ceiling. And it was really like, I think I work a little bit more purposefully now, just because like I have so much to do. It's hard to not plan things. But back then I used to like be like, I have a shoot scheduled for this day, and I would get home from work and I would go in the basement and I would just like look around and be like, what do I feel today? Like, what calls to me today? And it was really like, I would say like site specific, but I guess the site was the same every time. So maybe it was more like I kind of built each space with a specific model in mind, or kind of like what I was feeling that day. And most of the time it worked out pretty well. Sometimes someone would come and I'd be like, oh no, I built the wrong space for the wrong person. But most of the time it felt pretty good.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. It looks like so much fun to make a set like one of these, and I can see how it probably relates a lot to your film work. Like, when you said you were working with a team on a lot of the film projects you've been doing, what is the like breakdown of like, what do you end up doing when you're working on a set for a film? Is it like you're on the creative planning side, or you're like hands-on like doing the carpentry and the production?
I do a lot of different things. When it's my film, I do my best to like have some ideas on how I want the design to look and then pass it off to someone else because I don't want to micromanage. And I think it's hard enough like writing and directing something that I don't need to also be like trying to figure out like what color should the dresser be or the bedspread, like just letting someone else do those things. So when it's my thing, I'm trying to just write and direct. But when I'm working on other people's films, I'm often like production designing and making the decisions on what the space will look like. And then I do end up building stuff a lot of the time. I really should be doing one or the other, just because we just get stretched so thin. But I do love building stuff, so it's hard for me to be like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to build some stuff. And then in the middle of the job, I'm like, yeah, I should have picked one of these things. But
well, every aspect of a project like that seems so like, I don't know, the word I always use for something like that is like delicious, but that's not really the right word.
It is delicious.
But, yeah. But I can see why that would be getting in the weeds. If you're doing every tiny aspect of a project, it would take years probably to do.
Yes, it would. It would take a very long time. It already takes a very long time.
That's really cool, though. Can we talk a little bit about your recent film projects?
Yes, absolutely.
What are you working on right now?
I'm working right now. I can see it on my wall right now. I'm working on a feature screenplay that is, I started writing in 2020, so it's been a while. But I think it will. It's starting to reveal itself to me very slowly. So we're just letting it, trying to not put like time boundaries on it, and just allowing it to be.
Letting it grow up, right?
Yes, very, very much so. Very much so.
Could you talk about the theme that it says in, I think, your artist statement here, one of them, that your work explores the emotional toll of religious and romantic entrapment?
Yeah. Codependency, mostly, I think, have a tendency, I mean, like, will be my default for the rest of my life, I guess, to search for like safety and salvation in other people. And so especially growing up in kind of like a non-denominational Christian religious cult, was really easy to think of like men as a form of salvation. And so kind of like for a long time, like boyfriends and God were kind of mixed up in my mind, or kind of like colors running together. It took me a long time to kind of dig myself out of that and view a romantic partner as like a partner and a human being, and not as like some type of like magical cure-all fix. Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can.
Yeah. And that was, you don't have to go into it if you don't want to, but I'm curious, you said that was in the Boston area?
Yes. Yes.
And it's
it's not
ahead.
like people often ask, I guess, like it's not, there's really no specific cult. It was really more like it was like super fundamentalist Christian upbringing, like very isolated.
Right.
Yeah.
It was basically just a totally fucked up situation by the sound of it, if you would describe it that way. I love art so much that has such a beautiful, fantastical, or otherwise whimsical aesthetic that is exploring ideas that are so difficult to reckon with.
Thank you. Me too. I think that is one of the coolest ways to talk about things that are really difficult. It feels similar to me, like people talking, like using humor to talk about really difficult things, but I'm just not funny. So I don't know how to be and intentionally funny.
And what is it? Isn't there a quote that's like, if you can't be funny, you should just be interesting or something?
Great. I'm trying that one.
It is definitely interesting stuff. A lot of the sets that you're building remind me, I don't know if this is the correct title, but something about it kind of reminds me of the sets they would build in like what's those like old timey movies, like A Trip to the Moon?
Yeah.
That one.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that period of film inspire you at all? Those kind of like stage like theatrical, almost like flat sets. I don't know if there's like a technical terminology that you would describe that as, but
yeah, I think there's like the German Expressionism period. I think that's what it was. like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I have a very hard time watching old movies, but I can appreciate them visually.
Same.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually finished one of those movies.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you're like, fucking, this is sick, dude. Shit.
I know. I think it would be so cool to like recreate that imagery with like a more modern, like a film approach to it. I think would be really powerful.
I feel like you're doing that, in a sense, or maybe that's not exactly what you meant. What do you think it is about the German expressionists? Why do so many fucking people love them? Because with painting too, like a lot of people, like, because I'm a painter, mostly a visual artist, and a lot of people I find in conversation will relate, and I do this too, you know, relate what we do and what I do to, or a lot of painters to the German expressionist painters. You know, and it's interesting that you as a filmmaker, photographer, brought up the German expressionist filmmakers. You know, and I'm curious, like, what do you think it was about that movement, that time period, that, you know, that relates so much to like 2023?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like from my perspective, like I think we all have like a little bit of, like we all have the shadow self, right? Like we're all kind of pulled a little bit towards like our own personal darkness, and I feel like that is kind of revealed in like the design elements of that. Like it makes me think of David Lynch's work a little bit too.
Totally.
And how like compelling that is, because I feel like it's hard to face that on our own inside of us, but when someone else like brings it out, I don't know, that's what that design feels like to me personally.
That makes sense. And I feel like it's easier to reckon with these big concepts when they're not so literal, like when there's an element of fantasy or fairy tale to it, which I feel like you could say that about David Lynch's work, even though maybe that's not the first thing that would come to mind thinking about his work. But it's definitely there. And I can see it a lot in your photography and the film reel that you sent us too.
Yeah, giving people like room to dream in your work, I think, is really exciting.
Yeah.
So I noticed in your on your website too, it says that you or it seems that you have a lot of experience with hanging your work in galleries and stuff, or screening films in galleries. What is your approach like as a photographer, like with like, you know, with crossing over into like the physical space and hanging work in places? Like, what is your printmaking process like, or is like, I'm always curious to hear different photographers' approach to that kind of dilemma of digital to the physical world.
I'm very not precious about it. I think when I started out, like, and I got out of photo school, I was very much like, I want to print all of my own stuff. I would like to make all of my own frames, and I want all of it to be like, have my hands on it, and like, and I did that for a show or two, and I was like, oh, I can't use my energy.
Right, this is a fucking nightmare.
I need my energy to like keep creating work, and so I just get things printed, and I just get things framed, and they just go out.
Hell yeah.
And I think they always look good. I think my work, I'm lucky in that my work is like, you know, they're not like reproductions of like a scene you would see out in nature. And so like if the colors are a little off or something, as long as it feels good to me, I'm like, great, that's a great image, even if it's not maybe like, I used to do test prints and like check the computer and it's like, it already is like a weird image with a lot of strange colors. So if it feels good to me, it feels good to me.
Yeah, it just needs the artist's approval and you're all set. That's a good way to think about it, because I feel like it's so easy to get stuck in the weeds with preparing stuff to go out, that like putting together the perfect artist statement, the perfect proposal, or making sure you're getting the prints done in exactly the way that you want them, that sometimes it prevents you from, or in my instance, like my situation at least, sometimes it can prevent me from showing to as many things as I'd like to, because I want to be in all those little details.
Yeah, I try and think of it as like I'm never like, this is my last gallery show. Like, I hope that's not the case. So it always just feels to me like it's like we're just trying things, and the next time we're gonna try things another time, and we'll try different next time. Like I don't feel like it'll ever feel perfect.
Yeah.
And I try and be okay with that, and just be like, all right, well. And I feel like most people don't know what like is like we'll always be hard on ourselves, and very rarely do I feel like someone will be like like that artist statement really could use a little more work, and like the shadows were like maybe like 1 or 2 points too black in these images, like maybe another photographer will, but like I don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
I love that. That kind of freedom, I think, puts people who operate with that kind of freedom and, you know, I guess escape from self-restraint, I think go to like rise to a lot, like much greater heights, in my opinion. You know, that kind of like paralysis by analysis or kind of perfectionism is definitely a huge setback.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I can even drift into that at times.
And it's so true too. Like if you were in a gallery with somebody and they were like criticizing the punctuation of an artist statement or like saying that it should be printed on different paper, like that's so annoying.
Yeah, right. Shut the fuck up.
Who cares, right?
Yeah, you'd be like, why are you being such an asshole? Like, okay, like thank you.
Oh man.
So if someone's an asshole, we can dismiss it.
Right.
We don't need to worry about
Fuck
them.
Right.
Fuck 'em.
Another thing that I really love about what you do is like, I feel like, I don't know, maybe this is too much of a generalization, but I feel like a lot of people in the photography or multimedia world find it hard at times to put themselves in a like a fine art setting, you know, where there's a lot of people who feel like they are just bound to professional shoots or some type of commercial engagement versus like working directly with galleries, or as you put it, as like an independent artist that isn't like for hire necessarily. Like, I guess, like, was there a time where you were more of, you know, or were in like the freelance world as opposed to being like kind of identifying solely as like just your own artist? I guess I'm curious about that differentiation because you don't really see that with like a painter or something.
Right.
For some reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base.
No, the world of photography is a weird world. I feel like it's still like one of the art forms where it can feel more like utilitarian than like fine art. Which is like one thing about it. And then it's like, it's interesting you asked me about it because I personally, I still feel like I don't even quite fit into like the photo world. Like I oftentimes feel like my work is kind of like I'm using photography to capture something, but like really what's going on is like inside the image and like in front of the camera. And so I oftentimes feel like kind of an outsider in the photo world itself. Wow. And like a lot of things that I apply to that I don't get, I oftentimes, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but I feel like it's because my work is like almost like pushing outside of photography, which has made it, I think, difficult for me to like sustain a freelancing photo career, because the work that I would want to do is so much more design based, which means that my rates would be really high and my projects would be like really involved. And when I was doing more freelance stuff, it was more like headshots or weddings or these things. And a lot of respect to people who work as a photographer, because it's really hard. It's really hard work, but it gets like super repetitive. Like people end up kind of just like wanting the same types of things over and over. Yeah. And I was like, that's not why I like photography. Like I like it as a means to explore. I don't like it as like, oh, I just have this process with everyone. Like, you know, I did headshots for a while, and I could feel myself like I have a script that I would say to everyone, and I was like, this isn't like really this doesn't really feed my soul, I guess.
Yeah.
And like something I really love about your work is like, you know, not absolutely not like shitting on other photographers or anything, but there is like a element for a lot of people or a lot of photography you see where it's revolving around a specific idea or world, where it's like, oh, like I am a sports photographer, or I am photographing. Sometimes has more to do with the journalistic or documentarian world, versus I feel like what you're doing is expressionist. Like it's like you are expressing something like kind of ethereal or intellectual or otherwise abstract and artistic, versus, I don't know, going out and like photographing like fucking houses that burnt down or something, even though maybe that would be cool, but like that is, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, like go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, I know, I feel like I think I know what you're talking about. Like people yeah, there's like this thing in the photo world where like it almost feels like research based. Like you pick something you're interested in and then you kind of like shoot it over and over again, like a body of work that is like, oh, like I'm going around and I'm taking pictures of all burnt down houses, or like I'm taking, like I know a guy who was like, oh, I posted a picture of like a swimming hole in New Hampshire. He's like, oh, cool, like I'm doing a project on swimming holes in New Hampshire. Like, where's this one?
Oh, wow.
So like
Nice.
It's like repetitive, which is cool, I think. But it to me, like, I don't know. I don't get that feeling of like I'm going deeper and deeper into something that maybe other people do. I just am like, oh, I'm bored. I just want to do something very different now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the process like when you've built a set and you're getting ready to work with a model? Like, what is that like for you in terms of the process of the shoot versus the product? Like, do you see photos of them and then you build the set for them and then kind of just see what happens when they get there? Or do you have kind of a plan?
These days, it was much more like freeform before. Like when I was doing the garden, I actually would send out like a little short story that I had written, like very short, like a couple of pages, that was like kind of to be like, this is your character. Like we're kind of preparing you to be in this world. Now I don't work with strangers as much. And I kind of work with people who it's usually honestly me because it's easy to plan with me. Take self-portraits in my schedule, but I do work with like a few friends, a few like good collaborators. So I feel like we're kind of just always on the same page now. So now I usually will like be like, hey, I have this idea of this type of space. Like, are you interested in doing this? And they're like, yeah. And then I'll create it for them.
That makes sense. And then once they get in the space, is it just kind of like an exchange of energy kind of thing where you're just kind of working to see what shots come out of the space? Or do you already have a vision for how the end photo will be?
I very rarely have a vision, and I'm not super interested in having a vision either because I feel like it takes away from so much of like the spontaneity that can happen, which I think is like my documentary background. Like I really just want people to like explore the space and move around, and I think that everyone's so different. Like I'm not really interested in like what I want someone to do. I'm interested in like what are they going to do, like getting to know the person. It very much is like an exchange of energy. I shoot with movie lights. Like I don't shoot with strobes. I shoot with hot lights, and I do that one because I like it better. I like being able to see my light all the time, but I also like it because when a model is in front of them, like when you're on stage, it's difficult to see the audience. Like it's hard for them to see me. So it kind of creates this nice separation where I think they're able to like fall a little bit deeper into themselves and feel a little bit deeper. And it's not just like they're like locked eyes with like me the whole time. So they can kind of forget I'm there, which I think is where a lot of the magic happens.
I like that. So I'm interested in that terminology. So a hot light would be a photography lighting setup that's staying on.
Yeah, so not flashing and then turning off.
Wow.
It's interesting too, because now that you say that, I feel like I can see that process coming across in your work, because these photos look like I said earlier, I feel like they're narrative. Like it looks like you are doing documentary photography inside like a dream or in a movie that already exists or something.
I love that. Like
you stumbled across these people already in the middle of whatever's going on, you know?
Peeking through into some dimension.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad it comes across. Yeah, that's exactly what I like to do.
I'm curious too. So you said, to get back into the like timeline part of the interview, you had said that you were doing these parties in Cambridge where you were just kind of asking people to come and sort of setting a theme and then seeing what happens from there. Was that like concurrent with like college, or was that after college?
It was after college.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're kind of stepping into that part of your finding your voice as a photographer happened after school, or do you think it was part of that school experience, or both?
Oh no, it was definitely after school. I at the time I very much wished that like school had been 2 years later, or like this discovery had been like a few years earlier. I was so aimless in school because I was so interested in like documenting my friends or doing this like Nan Golden style work, and I hadn't started building spaces yet. And so I like was in a documentary class, and I was just like documenting, I think the city of Lowell. And it was just like, to me, like it was so boring. I was like, I don't like any of the work I'm producing. And I was very frustrated. And so I kind of left school like, great. Like I learned a lot of cool technical stuff. but I actually put down my digital camera after school for like 2 years, and I only used like a plastic film camera because I was like, I can't have all these like settings and thoughts in my mind anymore. And I feel like I need to get to like the root of like what this means for me.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I like to ask people that because we have some listeners who are younger or like starting art school now or thinking about going to art school, which is crazy. But it's so funny thinking about that time in my life because I had a similar experience where I was going to school for art therapy, mostly psychology, which is completely different from what I do now. And it's so funny to think about that time and thinking about how everything hinged on getting it right in those few years. And so many people's experience is that afterwards is when you graduate, you hit the ground running and you're like, all right, now what? And so much comes from that time after, which is kind of more hopeful because that after time is the rest of your life and your career, right?
Yeah. I kind of wish someone would tell you that in school.
I
like,
know, right?
It's okay. Like, this isn't like the end all be all. Like, you don't have to figure it all out now.
Yeah.
Like, you're just learning some skills, and it's going to take a while to figure out like where you're going to put them, and that's okay.
Yeah. That's ideal, really.
Yeah, I felt like I was learning shit that like I didn't even know I was learning until like years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had such a shit experience in college where like I did art school for a while and I did pretty good in the studio classes and failed or just didn't do any of the electives and then the fucking core curriculum or whatever and then just dropped out. And I was like, that was fine. And I just accrued some debt, had some fun, and didn't even get a degree. It was a little bit of a waste of time, but I learned some stuff.
There you go.
So that was cool. It made me a little bit better of a painter. Because for me, I've made art and painted since I was a kid. Like it's just been a part of my life forever. But I think one of the main things that I did learn from school in the short time I was there was I didn't even have any fucking like remote notion of professionalism like at all.
Yeah.
Like I just like would want to submit like a drawing on like a pizza box to a show or something. Like I just didn't know that like, and maybe that would be cool to do now with some kind of informed, I don't know, whatever. But like at the time I just was like, what's wrong with that? Or something.
Well, that's something too that's crazy is like at the right gallery you could do that, but you need to know how to write an artist statement to convince them.
Yeah, you got to make the case for it, I guess.
Which I don't know. Cool. Maybe they were trying to teach me that shit and I just wasn't listening.
Yeah.
I'm here for your pizza box show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come.
That would be kind of cool, honestly. Damn. So did you enjoy? So despite this kind of like documentarian shit that you were having to do, did you enjoy college, or did you feel like it was just like you were just biding your time until you could do your own thing, or did you feel like, like were you on a mission?
I really went back and forth on it. I really struggle with authority,
Gotcha.
which is like a thing I know about myself now, and I know how to like use that in like a healthy way. And so I really went back and forth between being like, wow, like I'm in photo school, like this is the thing I've loved since I was a kid, like I'm so excited, and then people would like tell me what to do, and I'd be like, go fuck yourself, like I'm not doing anything you tell me to do. Like it was a really like exhausting push and pull for me.
Yeah.
But in the end, I'm glad I learned a lot, and it was good for me. But
I relate to that. Anytime a professor would ever tell me to do something differently, I would fight them so hard like that wasn't why I was in the class.
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to teach
like,
me
who
shit?
are you to tell me what to do? It's like literally the teacher.
Yeah. That's why we're here.
Do you think a lot of professors just like see shit like that and they're like, oh, another one?
Yes, absolutely.
Here we go. We're doing this.
I know that teachers were like, oh yeah, this girl, great.
Exactly like the last 50 students that did the exact same thing.
Wow.
Wow, good times. I would like to go back one day. Did you what year did you end up graduating?
That's a great question. 2013, 2014? Something like that.
Oh,
Nice.
okay, cool. So I think you might be a little bit older than us. I think I would have graduated college in 2018 or 19, I don't know.
Nice. Yeah, I turned 30 last night, so.
Oh,
happy
hell yeah,
birthday.
happy birthday. Shit.
Thank you.
Did you
yeah.
throw a photography, like a whole big photo shoot party for yourself?
No, I did go with a friend, and we took some self-portraits at the studio, and I drew all over my face with like these skin-safe markers, and then I came back to my apartment, and there was a surprise party for me.
Oh my
I
God.
was all like drawn on, and I was like, "You let me do this?" And she was like, "Yeah, sorry."
That's so cute, though.
That's
Oh my
awesome.
It was very on brand.
I love that there was no warning.
Right.
Maybe it would have given away the surprise.
Yeah, I was like, Adrian, I was like, I kind of want to like take these photos and draw on my face, and she paused and was like, "Oh yeah, we could do that." And now I'm look back and I'm like, yeah, I see why she paused.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, that's sick. So you're working in a photography studio? Like, do you have like your own studio set up you're working with somewhere, or do you like rent like a big room or something? Like what's your studio setup like?
Yeah, I have a studio in Lowell. So I have two studios. I have one that's like kind of like the shooting area, and then I have one that's a shop where I build most of my stuff. And they're both way too small for me, but it makes me be creative and figure out unique ways to do things.
Cool. That's awesome.
And what kind of building are you in? A building with like a lot of like painters or like musicians or something? Like, is it like a big art warehouse kind of setup?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's one of those mill buildings in Lowell.
Nice. What's it like renting in Lowell? Is it like a vibrant community?
I really like Lowell. Lowell's really, really grown on me. Like, I did that weird, like tried to document Lowell a long time ago, and I felt very disconnected from the city and super uninterested in it. And I didn't go to Lowell for like 8 years or something. And then 2 or 3 years ago, I got the studio space, and I don't know. I've never really felt like I've lived in Cambridge and Somerville. I mean, I just feel like maybe it's so expensive to live there. Like, it's so like transitory of a space, almost like there's so many students. Like, I don't know. I never felt like a sense of community living in those spaces. But being Lowell, like, I know the people at like Lowell Telemedia, and there's a lot of workshops. There's like art bars and like festivals. It just is like honestly a really cool city.
Yeah. We have some friends that are up that way, and it's really interesting how they have a really committed and vibrant arts community. Like, there's like a comedy sector that we've interacted with a little bit, and there's people that put on like open mics, do shows. Like, it's really cool because I feel like it's kind of underrated borough or underrated little city.
A lot of shit up at Mill 5. I think we've been to a lot.
Yeah, I'm going there later tonight for they're showing the Oscar-nominated animated shorts at the Luna.
Oh,
cool.
Shit, that's sick.
Yeah.
Damn, what a fucking world. I like learning about this shit. Like, I don't think we've had a filmmaker on the show before.
That could be true.
Because like we actually, you know what we did actually for like 3 episodes in a row is we interviewed like 4 photographers or something. And I think twice during the interview I said, we've never interviewed a photographer before. Completely fucking wrongly, and like realizing that after the episode, like, what am I fucking talking about? I'm an idiot. So there's probably like some like accomplished filmmaker we interviewed and I just forgot in this very moment.
I think you're right this time.
Oh man.
We'll leave the fact check in the bio when we go back.
So I'm looking at a lot of Nan Golden's work as we were talking about this, and like I really liked like the kind of party atmosphere, kind of happenstance photos that she seems to have taken throughout her career, or maybe is known for. I don't know much about this artist. Like, do you have a lot of like those photos or photo sets you were talking about specifically from parties and events? Are those available publicly as well?
They're not really available publicly. I have a ton. Like, I have like over 60,000 probably of them.
Fucked.
But I did a zine that's on my website called 17 and Useless, where I compiled like a good handful of them. It took me 4 or 5 years to like whittle that body of work down to like something that felt like consistent and compelling.
Yeah.
That's actually like that's actually kind of a hidden element too of what you're doing in a way, where there's the, you know, this really exciting hands-on set building and tactile experience and like this, like these intimate shootings with like the models and your friends and stuff. But it seems like there must be this part where like, I'd love for you to tell us about like, are you, you know, on your laptop just like, you know, at a desk for hours sifting through this shit, or is it like, you know, you're just like laying down in bed at 3 a.m. like looking through your millions of photos, or like how is the editing or selection process? Like how does that go?
Oh, it's kind of like a nightmare. It's really like the worst part of like any of this photo stuff. Like
Right.
I'm pretty caught up now. Like I think these days it's like I'll do a shoot and I'll probably like wait a few days and I'll edit it and I'll probably get it down to like the 5 to 10 photos that I think are cool. If I let those sit for like a month, I can come back and I'm like, yep, those are like the 2 or 3 that are good. And so now I kind of have like a pretty small like collection of work. Like, you know, I've been doing this type of work for 5-6 years now. And I think I have like 160 photos that I would consider like final.
Wow.
Yeah, so I
That's
try and
sick.
keep it pretty organized because when I went and like dug up all those like old photos, like the Nan Golden inspired photos, and you know had them, I went through 60,000 photos and I printed like 2,000 or 3,000 of them and I laid them out in my room. I was like, oh, this is never going to happen. I don't even know how you begin to approach a project this size.
Yeah.
And it took years, so I was like, none of that ever again.
That makes sense. I relate to that. It's so funny you're saying that actually, because what we were doing right before we jumped on this interview, Brian has a studio here where they live of paintings that have been added to for years, like going back to like 2014, and there's thousands of them, and we were documenting and photographing and measuring all of them. And it's a long process.
It's basically just been a living nightmare of storage for close to a decade that I've never fully addressed, and it fucking sucks.
And I have the same situation too.
But that's actually oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's like I feel like for no matter what medium you work in, I feel really bad for people that are like ceramicists or something, 'cause that probably sucks.
Oh
But,
yeah,
like,
probably way worse.
The idea of storing, documenting, cataloging these pieces is so hard and so not fun. It's just interesting to hear how other people process that workload. There's a hidden aspect when people think about like the romanticism and beauty of being a full-time artist. They don't think about like your artwork archive account and like measuring canvases or like printing photos or the labor that goes into it that makes it a job, artwork, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And just keeping it organized. Like,
yeah.
In photo stuff, it's like, I guess it's kind of double for all of us, right? Like, you got to keep your like digital archive organized, and then you got to keep the like physical archive organized. Like I'm just getting to a point now where I'm starting to have like so many prints from different shows that I'm like, oh God, like I'm like, people will be like, what do you have available? And I'm like, I don't know, what do I? And they're like, or like sometimes someone will want something, I'm like, well, it's already at a show, and then I like reprint it, and I'm like, great, now I have 2 of these.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's kind of a mess.
What's that like with the set design too? Like when you're finished with the set, do you keep it or recycle it, or what happens with that?
Right now, usually I put it in storage. I have a huge storage space of like weird props and sets. I would love to be able to like be working at like a higher, you know, like financial level where I feel like I could like just donate stuff or like break stuff down and reuse it. But I'm often like, I feel like this will come in handy in like a few months. And it almost always does. I'm like, yeah, someone else wants something that's similar to that thing. Like, repurpose that.
Yeah. That's good though to have that backlog, because it must be difficult to start from scratch.
It is difficult.
Yeah, something I'm also curious to hear your thoughts about is like there's so much like discussion or different theories of like what the best way to digitally archive is, you know, whether it's like, I don't know, like putting shit on hard drives, or maybe some people think that it's a bad idea to digitally archive and that you should have physical archival images of everything you've ever done. Like, do you have a personal policy or theory on that, or like what do you consider an archival file or storage situation?
I can tell you that this keeps me up at night.
Me too.
I do 3 hard drives. So I do like, I have one that I'll be working off of, and then I back it up twice, and then I try and store one in like another location. I've always wanted to get like like a fire safe box or like a PO box, but I just haven't done that yet. So I just try and store it in another location, so that way, like if like God forbid my apartment burns down, I have hard drives somewhere else. So I mean, like I feel like I don't know about like the longevity of hard drives, and think about like cars. Like my dad's like a big car guy, so he'll be like, oh, I gotta like start my car up so like the battery doesn't, like the battery doesn't, I'm just gonna, make it just run it for a little bit. It's good for it. And I'm like, maybe the hard drives need that? I've been running my hard drives like a little bit. I don't know. Hopefully they're fine.
I've heard somebody say that about old laptops and computers, that the best way to keep in like a computer that's in storage healthy is to like turn it on like every 6 months or some shit.
I have heard that.
Yeah.
But you're also not supposed to leave them on.
I know, right? Yeah. I have like a laptop in my drawer that hasn't been turned on in a year that I would be very sad if it was permanently inaccessible. Yeah. Anywho.
You're stressing me out. That's fucked up.
Also, another thing that fucking sucks is fire safe cabinets are ridiculously expensive. I was looking into trying to buy one. They're like thousands of dollars.
Maybe someday we'll get lucky and we'll find one on the side of the road or something.
I know.
Also Christmas. Keep an eye out.
You know what else is crazy expensive that I had never even considered would like how much it would cost is those is flat file cabinets. Like a file cabinet that accommodates giant pieces of paper. Those are ridiculously expensive, even if you get them secondhand.
Are they really?
Yes. So, because I was thinking about trying to buy one, and obviously I did not. But yeah, archival conversations about archivability is like definitely stressful, because it is such a living conversation, because there is an industry standard for paintings, for, I don't know, like specific types of printed photographs or drawing. Like there's like procedures that a lot of museums will use, but there doesn't seem to be a popular or set procedure for the digital, the digital world. And that scares me. So
for a long time I was like, oh, I gotta get, like, I also should be backing this up on the cloud. But then I saw an article recently about, they were like, oh, like the cloud is full.
What?
I was like, what do you mean the cloud is getting full?
Which
I was
cloud?
like, I can't, you know what? I'm not even gonna, like, I can't feed into this right now. So I have too much else to worry about.
Oh my God.
I didn't do my research on it, so don't quote me on it, but I saw the article and was like, maybe it's okay that I didn't back all this up on the cloud. It's good.
Right. I've thought of that too. Like, I don't even, like, maybe hard storage isn't even the move. Who the fuck knows?
Dude, when it comes to digital stuff, I get so, like, irrationally mad, too, while I'm doing it. If, like, the file type is wrong, I can try it twice, and then I run out of patience, and I'm like, I'll do this in 6 years.
Same.
Maybe I'll come back to this.
And to change gears a little bit, and talking about transitioning out of like doing boring, uninspiring shit and into doing your own thing that you actually like. What was your I guess transition like into working with real galleries? Because it seems like you're like very experienced working with galleries or hanging different shows and shit. But like, what was like? Could you take us through the first time you did that and, any expectations you had or things you learned, or like what was the beginning like?
Yeah, in 2018, got my first gallery show. It was at a gallery in Natick. It was a solo show. It was really fun and it was very overwhelming. And it came because like a guy that I had gone to high school with was doing like a zine about millennials living at home with their parents. And he was like, do you want to submit some photos? And I was like, sure. And I did. And then someone else who submitted to the photos was like the assistant of the guy who ran the gallery. And they were like, I really think he'd like your work. And so they got me a show, which was cool and kind of like fueled my like, we'll never say no to anything. Like any opportunity could lead to something cool, which is a cool way to think, but also exhausting.
Yeah.
Could easily lead to burnout. But we put up a show in Natick. It was a great show. I gave the wrong, we like picked 4 photos that would be printed like larger than the rest. And I mixed up dimensions. Like I think I told them that like the short dimension would be the long dimension or something. I ended up showing up with these like life-size, like 6 foot tall, like poster prints of photos. And they had these like 2 foot pieces of glass to put them in. And they were like, And I was like, oh shit. We ended up making it work and the show turned out great, but it was very much like a moment where I was like, oh yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing, do I?
Oh man, that sounds stressful. I'm glad it still worked out though. That probably looked sick with pieces that large.
It was great. I've never printed that big again, and I feel like every show I have, I'm always like, big enough now, because I've spoiled myself.
Yeah.
With these huge prints.
I feel that way with big canvases. Like, once you make it huge and it has that moment of, like, this is a giant piece in a gallery and I'm looking at it and I made this, it's like a thrill.
Yeah. I get this, like, super villain urge of just, like, bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger. Like, everything must be bigger.
Oh, man.
Oh, holy shit. Do you have a big studio right now?
It's like, my studio is like 500 square feet, and then my shop is like 250 square feet. So most of the time, everything I do spills out into the hallway, and everyone at the gallery is like, oh, wow, like, what you doing? Like, don't mind me, just like stepping over your stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah. It's cool, don't worry. But they're usually very nice.
Awesome.
That's interesting. I'm surprised that the shop is the smaller space.
It's only because there's like an area in the building where woodworking can happen, and the other area they're like, you can't have any dust over here.
Yeah.
That makes
sense. I
sense.
probably would switch them if I could, but
that makes sense.
We make do.
Damn, dude.
It's funny too. We're looking at your like exhibition history, and there's so many names on here that I recognize. We know a lot of the same people, which is really cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like we worked with. It looks like when you were doing stuff with the television center in Lowell. Do you know Wednesday Newcomb?
I love Wednesday. Yeah, we're working on a little limited series together right now.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah, Wednesday's great. They've known Brian for a while. Yeah,
we also, a while ago, we got invited actually to do a story on the Hard Times show that you did with Kingston Gallery. Did you have, it seems you had a piece in that as well?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. How was it working with them? We were planning on paying that gallery a visit pretty soon.
They were great. It was a great show. Yeah. It was super cool being like on Harrison Ave, and
that's
like
the
being
fancy
part of
street.
First Fridays and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Theo just did a show there as well.
It's like
cool.
It's like off of Harrison. Yeah, it was
off of Broadway.
It's like close. But yeah, we actually Martina Tanga, the curator for that, also curated the exhibition Touching Roots at the Museum of Fine Arts right now, and we did a story on that exhibition that was really cool. She's an awesome person.
Yeah, she was lovely. She was really lovely.
Yeah, man.
16 is so small.
Yeah.
I know.
Holy shite.
And do you know what?
Sorry.
Do you know Emma Levitt? I saw that you have some pieces hanging at 1369. I think she's the curator there, unless she isn't anymore. Yeah, she's really cool too.
Yeah, when I lived in Cambridge, we were neighbors.
Oh, no way.
Like, literally next door neighbor. And so I would do those like immersion parties, and like or I don't know if she lived there or she was just always there.
Yeah.
But like she would look over all those people in the other house would look over and be like, what are you guys doing? And I'd be like, oh, just like, I don't know, just like throwing like 80 pounds of confetti in the air, you know, like just doing like weird stuff. And they'd be like, that's really cool. Can we come over? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
I used to rent a studio at Dorchester Art Project when Sam was running the tenant spaces there, who Emma's engaged to now. They're both really cool. They've done a lot for the art scene.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, Emma's really great.
But yeah, despite all this, we are honestly super excited to have you on the show, just because like we are trying to create like a this like collection and menagerie of different people, you know. So I guess I'm losing my train of thought here. Fuck, I'm a dumbass.
That's okay.
Blah, 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 blah,
I'm very
blah.
excited to be here.
Yeah,
and
no.
I think that the more Boston can like consolidate its art scene, the better. I feel like Boston is very disjointed.
I agree.
It's like a small scene and it's really vibrant, but it's like, I feel like it's kind of broken up. And so I feel like the more resources we have to kind of bring everyone together, the better.
Yeah, and it's weird because we never have intended or never thought like, you know, that we could be an agent of that kind of collaboration or community building, but it's been like really cool to do that, to just see like, you know, the most random people ever, like from, you know, it's like kind of a similar feeling to when you accidentally fuse two friend groups in your life or something, but like way more intense, where it's like accidentally, or just, you know, just connecting people to each other that are from such vastly different worlds. But the mistake a lot of us make, or that I've made, is that like those worlds are not opposing to each other. You know, those worlds can coexist and meld into each other, and I think that's badass.
It is so interesting too that Boston is like that, because there's so many people in all of these subgroups that are so committed to the Boston scene and Boston art, but maybe they're working in a different medium, or maybe they're on the gallery circuit versus the DIY circuit, or vice versa, and it creates such like dissonance. But everybody is actively trying to unite those groups. It's just weird. I don't know. It's a funny thing that is true about the city that I hope changes as we move forward.
Yeah, me too. And I feel very dedicated to the city. I get people sometimes ask me like, you know, oh, you're gonna move to New York, you're gonna move to LA, and I'm like, I really like Boston. Like, I'd love for my company to be international, but like I feel very dedicated to Boston.
Yeah, which is nice. I feel like that is a thing that a lot of people think that. I mean, the art scene in New York is obviously really, really big, but Boston has one too, and it's funny that we don't have as much of a reputation for that. Because we should.
I think we should. I think it's changing. I think I think as the generations shift, it will change.
And in the last few years too, especially since the pandemic, it feels like Boston is so much more on the map, which is a weird thing to observe.
I think people are hungry. Like they're really hungry for experiences and for like a change and catharsis and art and just like being places that stimulate them. Yeah. So that's what art does.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if this is a fucked up thing to say, but I feel like with the pandemic too, a lot of the people, like, I feel like it had an effect in a way, at least on art and music and stuff, that the real ass people and the lifers are still going and are more powerful than ever. And all of the fluff and things are like, I don't know, people who are just in it for the money or capitalizing on artists in some way, all moved on to different businesses.
Cool. I like that. I hope that's true.
Yeah, maybe it isn't completely true. It's definitely a generalization, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's people, we meet people, we started this after the pandemic, and we meet people all the time that are fucking on fire.
Yeah.
And doing like sick shit. So
it was really
you being
cool.
One of them now. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you feel like the pandemic affected your practice a lot? Because it seems like, obviously, with a lot of these shoots, you need to be around people. What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had just wrapped on my first short film. I mean, like literally days before the world shut down. Like we were on set, and my friend Lucas was like, "Oh, like they found the case in Middlesex County," and I was like, "Nothing's gonna happen, Lucas. Like it's just like forget it." And so it was kind of a blow to me to feel like I had just found like collaboration in a really deep way, and was really excited to get deep into that. And then the world was like, you can't do that at all even.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a really great time for, like, I think of it as like an incubator time where I really got to think about like, okay, like what is this business that I want to start? Like, what does my practice mean to me? I was able to write a lot, which was cool. And then I did that self-portraiture project, Empty Spaces, which I feel like just taught me so much about myself and the reason that I take photos and what's important to me about it. So it was cool. I was just thinking the other day about, I was like, oh, I found a shirt that I bought like during that time when I was taking those pictures, and I was like, oh, like what a good time. And I was like, Jaina, it was a terrible time.
I feel that way about it too, though. Because I feel like for a lot of people, like for creatives anyway, the dream, I think about this now, that like, I wish I had like 3 months to only paint, you know?
I know.
Even though it was horrible circumstances, obviously, but yeah, it's so funny how simultaneously terrible and romantic that era was.
And when it was happening, my therapist, I was like, oh God, like what's happening? I don't know what I'm going to do. Like this is all bad. And she was like, you're never going to have an opportunity to do nothing like this for the rest of your entire life. You should enjoy it. I was like, I don't know. And she was totally right. So.
That's awesome.
She's a very smart lady.
I'm glad that she was that level. I actually had an experience during the pandemic where my therapist told me that COVID isn't real and not to worry about it. And it was like during lockdown, and I was like, oh my God, I have to quit therapy during lockdown.
Oh, that's so stressful. I think that I would have unraveled. I would have been like, well, okay.
I was like, dude, that's not true. She's like, it's fine. Me and my daughter don't wear masks. It's not real. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh okay. My goodness.
Yeah, I think about that a lot.
It's so terrible.
I wonder if she like thinks back on that now, like, I can't believe I fucking said that to one of my patients.
Probably. Because I think it was just like a crisis denial situation, and I was like, we're all going through it. Like, my therapist is going through it. But
no, they're the ones who are supposed to not do that.
I know. Well, I guess she couldn't anticipate like the end of times, so.
They're not gods. Aren't therapists gods?
Yeah, what the hell? That's what I signed up for.
Holy shit.
Oh man. Yeah, so I guess all right, maybe it wasn't the most romantic time.
No, it's only looking back. It's like when you look back and people are like, wow, like being a teenager was great. I was like, no, it was awful.
It was fucking
like,
awful.
you just liked feeling like kind of like limitless and like you didn't have to pay bills and you could like say stuff and there's no consequences. Like those are all great, but like being a teenager was terrible.
Yeah.
It's just like
so,
these little
dumb.
bits you miss.
I have like some of the memories that I think about from high school or when I was in that age group was like being with my friends and like one of my friends wore a suit all the time and we like walked out into a pond and he was wearing the suit and it felt so important. And just thinking about that from like if I was just standing on the street now at like 25 and just saw that happen, I'd be like, that's so stupid. What are they doing? But,
I know. If I ran into my like teenage self, I would be like, get your shit together. Like go read some more books and just like get off the street. Like stop being such a like a hooligan.
Yeah. I would have shown myself Catcher in the Rye a few years earlier. I feel like that would have done me good.
Right. Not understanding the ending of SLC Punk.
Oh my god, yeah.
Irrelevant.
I don't know. I'm probably a dumbass now. Whatever. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. We're at about an hour. So went by fast.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. You guys this is great to talk to. I love having good conversations like this because I feel like I always leave thinking a little bit deeper about what it is I'm doing. Like I always have it's like I find it like a hidden puzzle piece in my room and I'm like, oh, this one too. So thank you. Thank you for that.
That's so cool. I love that.
My two takeaways are always, man, that was so insightful and I'm a better person now. And also, I'm so fucking stupid. I'm an idiot. Why did I say that? That's what I do.
The dichotomy of life.
Right.
I know.
I learned so much and I'm an idiot and a piece of shit.
You're so much closer, though, to not being an idiot. So
right? You're a little further. Further down the road.
Yeah.
Someday.
Oh, man.
Hell yeah.
Well, we'll have to hang out sometime, or maybe we'll cross paths. It seems like we overlap a lot artistically anyway, with the people that we know and the places we're at.
That'd be great. Yeah, someday we definitely will.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that makes, like, one thing that can be hard, too, is that, like, when we're doing an episode or an interview with somebody that we're like not 100% familiar with yet, it's like always like, it's always fun regardless, but it's even more insightful and stuff to like see studios or to be in a gallery or the setting or something. So maybe even in the future, if you're down, maybe we could even like, if we're coming up to Lowell or something, we can come check out what you do or a show you have going on or the studio.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys do a studio visit. That'd be a blast.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. I'd love that.
So we can get into the weeds a little, even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wear your dirty clothes because even if you're not doing anything, that studio, it's like a layer of dust.
I know exactly what you mean.
Accumulates.
I love that.
Yeah.
Dress for mess. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up then. But thank you so much for talking with us. We'll definitely have to reconnect with you soon.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you guys too.
Thank you.
Boston Art Podcast is an independent DIY production by Brian Huntress and Theodora Earthworms. The information contained in this episode represents the views and opinions of the original creators or our guests, and does not represent any institution, organization, or business. Find us on Instagram at Boston Art Podcast, and tune in for a new episode every Friday. Thank you for listening.